Welcome to the Addison Center for the Arts. We are really happy to be here to tell you about an exciting project that we're working on with two wonderful with a wonderful Ukrainian artist and an artist activist. We're going to do a benefit for Ukraine that helps to bring Ukrainian refugees from wherever they are in Poland, wherever they've escaped to here to the United States. And we're going to be donating all of the money that is raised, all of it, 100%. All of the artwork here has been donated by the artists, and all of the proceeds are going to go to the United Ukrainian American Relief Committee. Now, this is the same committee that has helped one of our guests, and we're going to get into that in a moment. The exhibit opens on Friday, May 6th, and it continues through June 18th of 2022. And we're having our big benefit, and we hope you'll all come. This will be a rally in support of Ukraine. And all that they've suffered, all that we've suffered, watching their pain as it unfolds, in the news. So so we're open from Wednesday through Saturday every week from 1 to 4, and so write your checks, come in, choose some artwork, write checks, or just donate. We would love to have you just pledge some money to the cause as well, and help us out, help us raise money for Ukraine. So we're going to get started. We're going to talk to our first artist, who is going to donate everything to Ukraine, and her name is Tanya Blanco. Tanya is very active here at the Addison Center for the Arts. She is one of our volunteers. She's been a longtime member, and she's also very active in the Addison Art Guild. And she's also been one of our solo artists here. So we're really happy to have you do this wonderful benefit for Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Julie. So my background is that I was a refugee. In 1949, my brother and I and my parents arrived in the United States through the efforts of the United Ukrainian American Relief Committee. They helped us settle into Philadelphia, and that's where my life began. I have been an avid Ukrainian because my parents did not allow me to speak English in the home. We actually had to pay a fine if we spoke English words. It was very important for them to know that their children knew their heritage and embraced it in every possible way. So I'm eternally grateful for their choice to come to the United States, where I had the freedom to grow up bilingual and learn all the things that came with my heritage. We learned the language, we learned the history, we learned the music. My father was a choral director, and so our home was filled with pretty much everything Ukrainian. As a young scout member, I learned to make the Ukrainian Easter eggs. They're called pisanki. Many of them have symbols of nature, stars, the little circles are seeds, vines, leaves, sometimes even animals like deer, everything that is part of our heritage, because we are a country that is the breadbasket of the world, as you may have heard, and we have a lot of plants and a very close relationship with nature. I learned to do embroidery, and this is an example of one of the pieces that I completed as a young woman. So my art career actually started as a young person, with the eggs, with the embroidery, and then I took a leave of absence from making art until I was in my 40s, when I decided, well, maybe I'm not the best drawer in the world, but I sure love art and art history. And that's how I came to be an artist. I think some of the things I might want to talk about is the symbols that I relate to Ukraine. The colors, of course, blue and yellow feature prominently in a lot of my work. And it's not always a conscious decision to use blue and yellow, but it comes out anyway. I've looked back at some of my older pieces and I'm like, oh yes, of course, these are our colors. And other things that come through to my art are the organic shapes that I use. As I'm drawing, if I'm doodling, oftentimes it comes out as a leaf or a flower or something like a bird. The Ukrainians love colors, and I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of my work is using bright colors. Although in some of the pieces that are on exhibit today, the subdued colors also talks about the difficult history of Ukraine. I think that's where that comes out. I think everyone in the United States by now knows that this, one of the symbols of Ukrainian heritage are the sunflowers. We grow many sunflowers. They're very important to us. Sunflower oil, sunflower seeds, that was always part of my heritage as well. On the flag, you'll notice the trident. It is the coat of arms of Ukraine, and more often it is appearing in the news when newscasters are showing images of protests or symbols that are carried by Ukrainians that are fighting the war on their lapels. So that's an old insignia that's derived from the Volodymyr the First Grand Prince of Kiev. On the table, I also have a copy of the book written by Taras Shevchenko, who is our big hero. He was born in 1814, and he was a son of a peasant family, and he was a serf. And I just discovered that he was not a free man until he turned 24. But he was gifted. He was a poet and a writer. And this is a book of all his work. And in addition, he was also a drawer, a painter. And that's not often that you find someone gifted in two different mediums. And we really treasure this, this poet and his work because he represents freedom to our nation. Even though we lose that freedom periodically, this is who we turn to. And in March, there have always been many concerts dedicated to him and his work.
Now, Tanya, you still have family in Ukraine, right? Lots of friends and family that you are still in touch with very often?
Yes, so I have approximately 20 relatives still living in Ukraine in the area of Lviv, which is the western part. And I call my cousin about every 5 to 10 days whenever I get a chance to remember what time it is there, so I'm not waking them up in the middle of the night. I talk to one of my cousins, and she provides me with the information of how everybody's doing. So the men in our family are all prepared to fight the war. The younger ones are fighting the war. The older ones often are doing volunteer work, like driving ambulances or delivering food and things like that. Right now, I'm happy to say that everybody is doing well, is coping, and is safe.
Tanya, thank you very much for the Ukrainian-American perspective on the crisis. Thank you very much for doing all of this and for, we approached her and said, what do you think? Do you want to do a benefit for Ukraine? And she was like, do you think we should? And you had so much going on, you just weren't sure whether she could do it. And Tanya stepped up and she said, yeah, let's do it. And so she's the reason we're doing this. And she is also the reason that we were introduced to our next guest. This is Jennifer Harith, and Jennifer is an activist and an artist, and she's also an educator. She's been working with young people for over 40 years, 50 years, yeah, 40 years. And I'm going to let her tell her story because she's working mostly with refugees and how that is really affecting the world today.
Yes, I'd like to talk about refugees in general, but then also why Ukraine is so close to my heart right now. I was very fortunate. I've been a college professor for 40 years at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and then at the College at DuPage. And I had a chance to teach all over the world. I taught in Sri Lanka, in China, in Mexico for 4 years, in Brazil, in Costa Rica, and then in Kiev in Ukraine. And I think when you have a chance to be a global citizen, you're very aware of how important it is to understand the role of what's happening with refugees from country to country and why people have to leave their country. People don't want to leave their homes, but why they have to go on these journeys away from what they know. So I'm very grateful for those experiences. And so I had started a series of paintings called The World is on the Move. And that idea came from the fact that I've been, of course, like everyone, very concerned about climate change, about all the changes that are starting to go on in the world. And I really felt like we have to start to realize that there's a good chance all of us will become refugees at some point for different reasons, and that we have to stop thinking about the refugee as the other person. It's all of us are going to be refugees, I believe, in the future for different reasons. And so we need to be ready to care for one another in those roles. And there's a really important quote that I read this fall that I'd like to share with you. It says, it is this struggle that has informed my conviction that the figure of the refugee is the archetype of the 21st century, if not humanity itself. So that's a more articulate way of saying what I'm trying to say, is that this is going to become part of our global, as a global citizen, you're aware that this is going to become part of our world. So I started a series of paintings in September called The World is on the Move, because that's just how it felt to me, like we should start to really look at this. And the paintings were very different than my other work. Many people know me in Chicago much more as a portrait artist. But I wanted to do some abstract paintings where the paint, actually the movement of the paint, would start to tell me what it would become, rather than making it like some kind of activist poster directly, which I've done in the past many times. But this time I wanted almost the sense of the movement and the sense of the refugees to come out of the paint. And there's a very important moment in one of the paintings where all of a sudden I saw this hand coming out. And this hand was formed out of the paint strokes. And when that hand came out of the paint strokes, right at that time was when on the news we were seeing the lines of Afghan refugees waiting to get on airplanes and parents having to hand their children to strangers to be able to get them onto airplanes and things like this. So every bone in my body wanted to say, I wish we could put our hand out there to those Afghan refugees and say, we want to hold you. We want to hold your children in safety. And so that was kind of where the work turned from just a general sense of how we're going to be on the move the work said it was even more about refugees. But I've done many pieces in the past about refugees as well, because I think it's important that, like I said, really where the world is going. So, so then I started this series of paintings. They're oil paintings. They're smaller than I would usually do, but I wanted them to stay intimate and very, very layered and rich. Somehow that felt like that's the experience, because the refugee experience is full of so many unknowns, so many mysteries. Are you going to end up someplace wonderful? Are you going to end up someplace that's the next nightmare? Are you going to get where you think you're going to get to? Or does the world send you someplace completely different? So somehow I wanted the paintings to show the complexity of that. Also, another thing I do in the paintings is I use a lot of stencils. And it sounds kind of funny, but a stencil is almost like a generic person or a generic set of refugees, a generic set of soldiers. And I do that sometimes in my paintings to make it so that everybody starts to identify. That could be you. That could be you being faced with this situation. So it's trying to bring this home to people. But there's a very sweet side to this story. So I have a very personal connection, someone I've been speaking with literally every morning via messenger on my phone, is my publisher who lives in Kiev and who I went to visit in Kiev and taught a workshop there with her. And I am the inventor of a therapeutic tool called the Teenage Archetype Card Deck. And this is an international tool that's used across the globe by therapists to help teenagers and other patients as well articulate their emotions more. And this is published in Ukraine by a publisher there. Her name is Anna, and she publishes it for, ironically, for the Russian public as well as for the Ukrainian and for all of Europe. So she's a Europe connection with this. So I had gone to visit Anna and do a workshop with 35 therapists in Kiev around the card deck. So when all this started happening, of course, this isn't just someone in the world. This is someone and her 2 daughters and her husband who I've had borscht at their house with them. And so I'm very, very worried, and it's very brought home every day. I worry to make sure she's still safe. And like so many Ukrainians we've seen, these are such brave people. And she absolutely refuses to leave, even though I did offer to bring her to Chicago with her family. But she absolutely refuses to leave because she wants to counsel the soldiers. And she feels like that's a very important role, helping the mental health of the young soldiers. And the other therapists who were my students there as well have stayed to do this. So incredibly brave people. So that's my direct connection with Ukraine. So my paintings went from being about the Afghan refugees and refugees from Central and South America, who I always care about, to being about the Ukrainian refugee cause. Then what happened was I did 14 paintings, and I thought, okay, I'm done. And an artist, that happens. You know, you can develop a series, and then when it's done, it's done. So one Saturday morning, I thought to myself, okay, that's all the paintings that was in that series. I'm done with this. And then Anna, who's my connection, sent me a picture of a cat. And I don't usually paint cats, but I am a cat lover, and she knew that. But what happened was her next door neighbor, they had to evacuate. And so they had to leave their pets because they couldn't take them with. So Anna and her girls adopted the dog, and then they adopted the cat. And she sent me on a Saturday morning when I was just cleaning up in the studio. She's like, this is our new cat, and his name is Refugee. And so I thought, okay, universe, I got it. There's 2 more paintings to come in here. And the reason 2 more paintings is because I wanted to make a painting with Refugee the cat that went with the series of paintings, which includes a line of soldiers behind the cat and refugees in flames around the cat. But I did not want to give that painting to Anna and the girls because I wanted to make something for them much more uplifting. So I knew I had to make 2 cat paintings. So I finished the one, and then I wrote to Anna, and I said, what would you like in the painting with Refugee? And he's kind of a funny-looking cat, to tell you the truth, on top of it, kind of a squished cat. And so I said, what would you like in the painting? And her little girls love to ice skate. So I thought maybe they'd like ice skates in with the cat or this or that. Well, I was really off base because she sent me back pictures of Ukrainian Cossacks, which is her symbol for how brave the Ukrainians are. And the Ukrainian Cossack is like the samurai of Ukraine. And so she wanted the Cossacks in the painting to show the courage of her girls and of everyone. So I decided to turn the Cossacks into a carpet pattern. And I wanted them out of there. I know they're very brave, but I want them to safety. So I decided to put Refugee the cat and the Cossacks on a flying carpet, and that I would have a magical flying carpet that would bring them to safety and out of their situation in Kiev. So I made a fanciful painting for them, and that is not for sale in the show. There are prints of it for sale, but I will send that painting. I made it smaller so that I can send it to them. And I've been sending them pictures of it as I've been making it to kind of cheer the girls up. So it has kind of a lighter end to the story than some of the paintings along the way. I just also like to say, also at the show, we'll be selling the card deck at a reduced price, all the profits going to Ukraine, and also a book I wrote during the pandemic, An Artist's Response to Political Injustice. And this shows 10 years of activism and many things around refugee issues. So this will also be on sale for a discounted price at the reception as well.
Jennifer, thank you so much for participating in this exhibit and benefit with us. I'm so overwhelmed with how wonderful you are as a person, and your body of work is really wonderful.
I feel honored to be part of it. I had done this body of work, and when Tanya came to me and said this was an opportunity for us to get it out into the world, I feel very honored and very lucky, because I do think it's very timely. So thank you.
And as professional artists, I think you guys have been so sweet in that you are offering all of this art this art is priced to move. So come in before the benefit day, the rally, come in during the rally and purchase this artwork. It's beautiful. It is, and they've left it so that you can frame it however you want to make it work with your house. Let's see, what was I going to say? There's also prints that are going to be available on. One of the prints will be of Refugee the cat on his flying carpet, right?
Yes.
And I totally want one of those so bad. And tell us about what you're going to be offering. You're offering other little things too, right?
So I'll have prints of the painting that I did a couple of years ago, not thinking ahead of time why I used my heritage portrait, I call it, in blue and yellow, and I thought it was very appropriate, but that painting is not for sale, so I have copies made, and that will be available.
Perfect. You have greeting cards that you've made too that you're offering up for sale for Ukraine.
Yes, I do small collage paintings that are individual, one-of-a-kind art cards, and they're going to be available. So again, I'm donating all the cards there. It's a perfect way to keep in touch with someone special. And if you know somebody Ukrainian, by all means, pick up a card, send them a note of support, and hopefully we'll be able to promote more information about the cause.
What a great
Can I say
idea.
one more thing. One of the things that I found is that people want to donate, but they want to know that their donation is going directly to people who need the things. And so that's what we can reassure you from this show. It's not only is 100% of everything purchased here going toward the Ukrainian people and their causes, but because of Tanya's excellent connections, we can make sure that your monies will go directly to where it is most needed by the people. So I know that that matters a lot to people because, you know, you're bothering to donate and you want to know that it will really work for you, for us.
Yeah, it's going straight to the source.
Yeah.
So we look forward to seeing you. May 21st from 2 to 5 p.m. is the rally and exhibit and reception. And again, the show runs from May 6th through June 18th here at the Addison Center for the Arts. Thank you so much, both of you ladies, for coming and doing this. And thanks again.